a few minutes delay. And right now, let us continue. So let us finish the discussion for chapter 8, and later we have the discussion for some details about the final exam. Okay, so next one, in fact, I skip it. In fact, you can generate random variable so that sometimes you can generate random vectors. If you generate random vectors, then you need to consider the correlation. And so that you can consider the stochastic process. But I seldom use it. Maybe you seldom use it as well. So I skip all the discussion. If possible, you guys can refer to the textbook, for example, this one. Okay, so actually for this, I do not discuss it. So someone like we skip it. And next one, let us check the generation of arrival process. Right now, from chapter 1, you know how to generate Poisson process. And previously about Poisson distribution. So let me emphasize this again. Poisson not equal to Poisson process. Okay, so I think you guys can check the definition for Poisson distribution. Poisson distribution is not the same as the Poisson process. Okay, Poisson process further involve time. And Poisson distribution, no concept of time. So that's why they are not the same. And right now, talking about the arrival process, we may have the Poisson process. And right now, let's check it. And we have the stationary Poisson process that says we have a fixed P. With the fixed P, then we can emphasize the inter-arrival time. It is the exponential, right? This one actually in the supplement of chapter 4, that you guys know some of these. So that's it. So stationary one. Okay, so you can follow exponential. So here, exponential. Well, we already have a rate, not beta. So we have beta equal to 1 over lambda. So that's why here we have this. So that's it. If we want to check the arrival time instant, we can employ exponential to have the generation of inter-arrival times. Inter-arrival times, this one. Inter-arrival time should be minus beta. So that's why minus 1 over lambda. Okay, so this one, in fact, it is not new. It just followed the generation of exponential in chapter 1, and so that we can have the generation of Poisson process. And next one, we have the non-stationary one. For non-stationary one, even we have the thinning algorithm, but I already have the idea. In fact, we may have these. You try to have the slice. Okay, if we have a slice, somewhat like through slicing, you can have the almost fixed rate for a duration. So if you have the given rate in the specific durations, then you just follow the duration rate to generate Poisson, and so that you can implement the non-stationary Poisson. And that's it. So that process, slicing, we call thinning, right? And that you guys know this already, batch arrival. So you have the arrival time instant, but you have the batch size for the arrival time instant. The batch size, you just follow some specific distribution. For example, you can have the batch size, the discrete random variable BI, and generate BI using the previous algorithm, and along with the Poisson, so that you can have the batch Poisson. Okay, so generate using person and generate batch size at the same time instance. Okay, and you can repeat and so that you can have the batch person. That's all. So this is a discussion for chapter 8. And of course, for chapter 6 and chapter 8, we skip some of the sections. And also, some chapters are totally skipped. For example, chapter 7. All right, so I skipped totally chapter 7. And of course, how about the remaining chapters? Left to you. If necessary, you guys can go through the remaining chapter for yourself if indeed you need to have some techniques. And we stop here and we can have the final exam. So right now, let us discuss some more details about final exams. Well, before closing the discussion for chapter 8, I still ask you guys any questions. So let me nominate some of you. Up to now, any question for Panka? Okay, good. And Diego? And Jinting? Okay. So if no question to chapter 8, let me have the summary. In chapter 1 to chapter 3, we have the way to have the simulation. And after that one, in chapter 4, we refresh the discussion for probability and statistics for the preparation of chapter 6 and chapter 8. Why? Because we need to have the other selection of probability distribution, for example, in chapter 6. And also we need to simulate, so we need to have the generation. So right now in chapter 8, we already know the way to generate. Way to generate, we also already know the general approach. After the general approach, we already know specifically the way to generate the random variables. So next time, if you want to generate simply, you can look up the table in chapter 8 and so that you can have the generation. Okay, so that's all. This is the course of computer simulation. Actually, the goal for you guys, you need to go beyond MM1. So that says not exponential simply. We still need to have some random variable in chapter 8. And in fact, in your final report, perhaps you need to select some of the paper. And those paper perhaps beyond the exponential distribution. So do you think, is it difficult to have the simulation for that? Maybe a bit difficult, but at least you know how to do because we have the knowledge in chapter 8. Okay, so all I want to let you know is don't worry, just try because you know the knowledge, in particular knowledge in chapter 8, so you can try. About the generation of random variables, I think chapter 8 that you have the knowledge. As for the other knowledge in the paper, perhaps you need to know the system. You need to know the working mechanism of the paper. I think that one is not within the scope of the taskbar and the course. So I think for that one, of course, you need to try to understand using that paper. And that's all. So here I just try to let you have the preparation to the final exam, so not final exam, final report or the final presentation. Okay, that's it. So this is a possible direction to the final report. So for your reference. And right now, let me discuss the final exam. For final exam, so for the final exam, what is the scope? Actually, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, including supplement. 6 and 8. That's all. This is the scope for final exam. And right now, the school let us have the distance learning, right? And the classrooms are locked. That says we are not permitted to go back to the classroom. So how to have the final exam through Skype? I will release the problem set. And you are allowed to finish the test by using the A4 page but scan to PDF. Or maybe you can print and finish and then scan. Okay, so all of the operations within 110 minutes. Approximately 2 classes plus 10 minutes. Okay, so this is a way to have the final exam. Originally, if we have the physical classroom, I expect to have a half closed book and half open book. But right now, it is not impossible. It is not possible to have the physical classroom to have the final exam. So I still try to use Skype to release a problem set. The problem set actually it is the problem with the proper space. So that's why if you have the printer, you can print it directly. And you are not allowed to have the answering using the e-file. So you need to do print or you need to scan and handwriting. Okay, handwriting. Handwriting allows simply. Okay, and that's why no need to use e-file. But finally, you need to change it to e-file to PDF and send it to me. Send to this email. And actually, I will let you know at CSIE. Okay, my CSIE account, because almost no delay. If you send to the other email through the Moodle, perhaps you may have the delay. About the time 110. So within that time instant, you need to finish the submission. And I set 0 tolerance for delay submissions. So that says before the final minute, you need to finish the submission, or otherwise I cannot accept the submission. Okay, that's it. Because of the change of the style of learning, so change it to totally distance learning to the end of this semester. So I changed the way of our final exam as well. About the style of the final exam, any question from you? No. Anything you want to do, you just do it. So someone like fully open. If possible, of course, we can have the Skype. And if possible, I try to, actually this one fully open, maybe it's nonsense to ask you to have, to open the streaming mode. So you can try open the streaming mode, but you are allowed to do anything. But I do not expect you guys to have the cross talk. You understand me? Talk to the other guys. No cross talking. That's all. Actually, numerical questions possible and non-numerical questions possible as well. So here I have the direct voice to you guys. And right now, maybe no text to answer your questions. Is it okay, Panka? Okay. And anything, any question else? Diego, any questions? One important thing is no need to come to our classroom. Still wait in front of your computer. And then I can release the file of the problem set for the final exam. About the final exam, someone like if I try to use the problem of Diego, it doesn't mean solve problems, but you need to solve it for sure. But someone like theory oriented, including, for example, including the content of chapter 8, chapter 6, and chapter 4. So what do you think? How to have the problems? That's it. And of course, I do not ask you to have the codes. Okay, so in our final exam, I do not have any simulation codes because we have a programming assignment. So I do not have the actual test on programming. So Diego, okay for you? Same for Andrew. Not code. We focus on the theory. That is how to have the preparation for the simulation. Actually, the date I released it already. It should be not next week. 2 weeks later, May 30th. May 30th. Okay, so I released this already. Okay, and for the first 2 classes, we have the exam. And for one left, so we do not use it. So finish, then it's done. All right. So this is the answer to Chen Hao. Okay, so any question else? Dayong, any questions? Any further question? And Sam to Haozong and Song Yang and You Jun. If no, you just let me know. Okay, got from Song Yang, You Jun, Darong and Haoen. So any further questions? Case study will be presented by me since maybe later or since next week. So we will have the discussion for the selected case study. No problem for that. And let me wait for the other questions from Jinting and Diego. About the questions of the final exam, of course, we need to solve the problems. As for the problems, maybe theory-based problems for simulation. But we now ask you to have the codes because I've asked you guys to have the programming assignment already. So I do not have the extra problem to ask you to have the codes. That's it. So that's all. So Diego, is it okay for you? Summarize if you take the other course and what is the type for the final exam? Similar to that one. So similar to the normal exam. So I use the term like the normal exam, but this time the style is not the normal exam, the style of the normal exam. I released the problem set. I ask you guys to have the answers on the answering sheets or the plain A4 pages. But finally, you need to send me a single PDF. Okay. Send me a single PDF. Do not let me have a multiple PDF file to cover your answers. That's all. All right, so that's it. I think Jinping have the other questions. At this, I ask you guys to merge all the answers into a single PDF file. If you have a picture, you need to convert that picture to PDF and then merge all the pictures together into a PDF file. So let me write the question from Jinping further. Actually, if possible, you try to have the name, or if possible, let me have the name. If not really clear, you can have the school ID. About the title, you just let me have the submission of the final exam. So title for the email, you can use submission of the final exam. As for the name for the PDF file, you can use your name plus school student ID. Sorry, student ID. If I miss some of the details, I think you just use your way. If you think it's proper, just use the proper manner to finish what you want to do. And then that's done. But keep in mind, time limitation, 110 minutes, and no delay submissions. Okay. And email you CSI email, that's it. Okay, that's it about some of the details of the final exam. It will be okay for you, right? And we don't have the normal class for the final exam. So finish the final exam and then finish the classes that day. And then we will start the presentation since, let me check the exact date. We will have the final exam, final presentation since June 6th. If possible, you guys try to have the preparation on that day. If we cannot finish, we will use the next week, another day of the next week after June 6th. So June 13th. That's all. I said the due date of the final report submission to June 13th. Okay. This one. All right. So normally it is the second, actually the 18th week. So we almost reach all the weeks. Why? Because we have 2 times of day off of Mondays. So maybe it's reasonable. We have the extension. Normally we are expect to finish within 16 weeks, but we have 2 times of day off, so still we finish within 16 weeks, but almost 18 if we follow the schedule of the school. So Panca have an exam on June 6th. We can try a week later for your presentation. Is it okay? All right. So that says perhaps you will be busy for the preparation of your exam. So perhaps not enough time for you, right? So if you need to pay attention to that exam, I allow you to have the presentation a week later. However, a week later, you need to submit the final report. About the final report, previously that you guys know, it doesn't mean you simply have the final report based on the PPT slides. No, you need to have somewhat normal way to prepare the final report. Okay, so up to now, any question further? If no, that's it. Let me switch to, oh. So if no, that's it. Let me switch to the case study right now. Maybe we cannot reach most of them, but at least I just have a start for the case study. And next week, the same, I will continue the case study. I think you guys have noticed the case study, the papers of a case study. So first of all, you should have a conference paper like this. All right. And I think I do not go through all, but you guys should understand this is a system, but the system includes the random phenomenon. And how to cover properly the random phenomenon to have the simulation. Then that is a goal for you to have the case study. And of course, with the case study, you should have the simulation for yourself and try to have the regenerated results. And so that try to have accurate enough results to make sure you can successfully have the simulation. That's it. So this is a goal for our term project to have the final report. Well, about this, maybe. So you can go through the paper. So right now, I just go through quickly. Right? And for some sections, email address may address the simulation details. You just follow that one to have the simulation. However, sometimes if we want to have the correct simulation results, you should have the all details about the parameters. If you don't have the details of parameters, perhaps that is a problem because missing missing parameters, it is not possible for you to have the accurate enough results. If so, then you need to reconsider the other paper. Okay, so this is a reminder for you to prepare the final report and final presentation. About the final report, about the final presentation, I just follow the order of the list in the score of the programming assignment, right? So I remember the first one should be this. Wait a moment for me. Oh, this one, follow this order. So Pankart may skip, right? So first one should be Chun Hao, then You Qun, Hao En, Da Rong, Song Yang, Jin Ting, then Diego, Andrew. As for the remaining two, perhaps they dropped, so I skip them. So this is the order because Pankart let me know he tried to prepare the final exam, so perhaps he will skip on June 6th. And June 13th we'll have the presentation by Pankart. And this is the order. About the order, any questions? If no, let me get back to the discussion for the case study. I have the PPT slides. And right now I share the discussion. In fact, about the final report, somehow like you need to prepare the PPT slides, right? The oral presentation. And the oral presentation similar to this one, you can allow to have maybe approximately 20 minutes for the presentation to have the details about your understanding, your preparation for the simulation, or maybe not preparation, simply you finish the simulation, so you can show the details about the simulation. All right, so for the current version, perhaps someone like finished the simulation, so that's why I can have the presentation for this article. Article talking about study on power saving for cellular digital packet data over a random error or loss channels. Okay, so for the presentation, of course, you need to have this way to have the slides. With the slides, you need to check to illustrate the details of the paper. And in particular, you need to specifically emphasize the preparation for simulation or the details for simulation, not simply for the preparation. And later we will have this item for the outline, including introduction. And the paper talking about power saving. So we have the power saving mechanism for the CDPD, cellular digit packet data. And power saving originally for CDPD, but the paper currently wants to have the discussion for incorporation of selecting ARQ with PSM, and that's it. So some of the design for combination of SARQ and the PSM will be shown. And finally, exam in the numerical example and discussions. Of course, normally we will have the conclusion. For your final report, of course, the conclusion for your simulation study, not the conclusion of the paper simply. So you need to alter the conclusion to fit the discussion for your simulation. Maybe some of the problem, maybe the accuracy, or maybe some other details, or maybe some points you want to emphasize for the simulation. I just followed the current paper to illustrate the case study. So of course, the conclusion for this paper, not the paper for the simulation, but at least this is a result based on the simulation. This is a conclusion for the simulation result of the system. Well, if you want to study, of course, you need to understand the system. So here, summarize, you need to understand CDPD. So of course, you need to let us know some of the system. And right now, the system here is CDPD. It is a network, data network overlay with a voice system. So originally, this is a voice system with SMS, short message system, and no further data. So CDP try to provide the fruitful data so that we have a CDPD and target to be a data network overlay over AMS. Even it is the data network, but it has the similar architecture. However, no mobile station. We have the mobile end system instead. And we have a base station, but right now it is called mobile data. No mobile switching center. Mobile switching center. No mobile switching center. Similar to the function of a mobile switching center, we have the intermediate system. And likewise, we call mobile data intermediate system. And that's all. So about the description for this mobile end system, it is a user end terminal, mobile data base station, right? Similar to the base station in AMS, an intermediate system, similar to the mobile switching center. But this one need to have the responsibility for mobility management, routing to the other intermediate systems or fixed end system. All right, so CDPD, a data network, right? Of course, data network. Summarize right now, we have 4G and 5G. Similar to the data network, we need to consider the power saving mechanism for sure. Okay, so here we have the architecture. So L interface and wireline and to intermediate, so to the other intermediate system or external network. But the paper focuses on the PAIL, mobile end system, and mobile intermediate system. That's all. I think we can continue for the remaining discussion next week. And actually next week, it doesn't mean we have a day off. We still have classes. So still come to the Skype. And let me share some of the discussion of the paper. Why I call share discussion of the paper? Because these are the paper of mine. So of course, I understand the details I share. And for some of them, we have the details of simulation. So of course, we can use this for the case study. Of course, some of them, if you think okay for you to serve as the paper for the case study, you can choose them for sure. Choose one among them for sure. If you don't think so, you can prepare for yourself by properly using Google. And Google perhaps using some proper key terms. Then I think you can find some papers. Of course, the paper including the possible actually including possibly the simulation. It doesn't mean the paper should have the simulation result. Sometimes with the theoretical result, but you can have the simulation result for that paper. It is okay as well, but at least you need to have the random phenomenon so that you can have the simulation. Here, I should emphasize simulation, not calculation. If you just have the calculation, it doesn't mean that is a paper for you to have the simulation. So not okay to have a calculation. You should have the simulation by employing some techniques of random phenomenon. That's it. So let me call it a day. And I will continue since this page. Is it okay? If no question, and then finish the registration, and then that's done. Okay, no question, then see you next week. Bye-bye.